All right, that was amazing. It worked so much better than it was even designed to. Hey everyone, in the last video, which I'll link below, I made this axial flux generator and explained how it produces electricity. And in this video, I'm going to test out the quality of the electricity it produces and hook it up to a couple different loads to see how much power it actually produces. And the ultimate goal for today is to charge this Aferiy P310 portable power station, and if I can get this charged, then it'll prove out the generator design. And this battery pack is actually really cool, and I'll tell you more about it later in the video. So now let's jump into the video and try to get the generator running some loads. Remember that electricity can be really dangerous, especially as the current and voltage increase, so make sure you know what you're doing and do it safely. This generator is producing three-phase alternating current, and its voltage and frequency are variable with the speed that it's spinning at, so it's not very usable as a stable power source. So to make it a nice, stable, clean source of power, I'm going to need to modify the electricity a bit. First, I need to rectify the alternating current into direct current. Direct current is simpler to handle and filter than alternating current, and by converting it to DC, I'll eliminate frequency issues, provide a more controllable output voltage, and allow easy overvoltage clamping, which is basically setting a max voltage. To do this, I'll connect the three-phase wires to a three-phase bridge rectifier. This is a device with a series of diodes, and diodes are basically one-way gates for electricity. These diodes only let the electrons on the AC side through when they're pushing in the forward direction. And as the three phases of AC rotate and push electrons through the rectifier, we get pulsating DC on the output. So now we have DC, and it's pretty dirty and has a lot of voltage fluctuations, and this is called ripple. A good DC signal should have a steady, flat waveform that represents a consistent voltage. Ripple is a variation in the DC voltage, and we can see that on the oscilloscope where the trace will have a wave or sawtooth pattern, and the peaks and troughs represent the high and low points of the voltage. To smooth out the voltage, we can use some capacitors. Capacitors are kind of like little batteries that can absorb and release electricity really quickly, which will help smooth out the voltage. When the incoming voltage is high, the capacitor will absorb some electricity, which will cause the voltage on the output to drop. And when the incoming voltage is low, the capacitor can release the electricity back, which will raise the voltage on the output. In this way, the capacitors are smoothing out the output voltage. I'll also add some TVS diodes after the capacitors, which will clamp any voltage spikes to protect downstream appliances. TVS diodes, or transient voltage suppressors, are protective semiconductor devices that basically do nothing when everything's working fine. But if there's ever a voltage spike that goes high enough to be an unsafe voltage on the circuit, the TVS diode activates and current begins to pass through it. It basically becomes an additional load on the circuit, and all the excess current from the spike passes through the TVS diode and is dissipated as heat. And this reduces the voltage of the circuit back down to a safe level. They're really only meant for very brief spikes, like milliseconds, but they can save the equipment on the circuit from a catastrophic spike. So now we have fairly clean and safe DC that we can use. The voltage will still vary with the rotational speed of the generator, so one of the most efficient ways to capture as much power as possible is to send it through an MPPT charge controller. MPPT stands for Maximum Power Point Tracking, and it tries to maximize the usable power from a variable power source. Power, which is measured in watts, is the product of the voltage times the current. We can see here a graph of a typical variable power source. On one end of the curve, the current is high and the voltage is low, and on the other end of the curve, the voltage is high and the current is low. The problem is when you multiply a low number by a high number, you still get a relatively low number. Somewhere here in the middle, we hit the sweet spot where the voltage times the current is the highest number of watts possible, and this is called the maximum power point. So an MPPT charge controller tracks and adjusts the incoming voltage and current to try to hit the maximum power point and then outputs as much power as possible. Next, it'll go to a battery bank where it can either be stored for later or act as a brief buffer while it's used immediately. And last, we use an inverter to convert the DC coming from the battery back into single-phase AC that can be used by standard appliances. The P310 has an MPPT charge controller, battery, inverter, and charging protection all built in. So in this build, all I need to do is hook the rectifier up directly to the P310 and it'll do everything else for me. And the power station is actually really cool, so I wanted to quickly show you some of the features and thank them for sending the unit to test. There are also some discount codes that I'll link down in the description. First, it's got almost a 4 kilowatt hour storage capacity, which is great by itself, but you can add 2 expansion batteries, getting it over 11.5 kilowatt hours, which is huge. It's got a 3600 watt continuous pure sine wave inverter, so you can run just about anything you'd need to. And the AC is switchable between 50 and 60 hertz, and I really like this feature because it means I can run American and European tools at their correct speed, which is great, and it's a pretty rare feature. And it's also got 5 volt DC with a ton of USB plugs and 12 volt DC with up to 25 amps. It can also be used as a UPS or uninterruptible power supply with a 10 millisecond switchover to protect sensitive equipment during power failure. It can charge off of AC mains or DC like solar with a built-in MPPT. And it's got a ton of safety features like protecting against overcurrent, overvoltage, overcharge, overdischarge, and overload. It also comes with a 7-year warranty and an app to monitor and control it. It's really got everything you need for a small off-grid setup or a backup emergency power supply. I'm going to set it up with a small solar array and a backup generator to try to take my office and video editing fully off-grid. I will add one last thing in this build, which is a buck converter between the rectifier and the P310. A buck converter is basically a DC voltage regulator that I can use as a soft start device. When a load is added suddenly to the generator, it can cause a voltage sag, stress the mechanical and electrical components, and worsen the quality of the power. By having a low voltage at startup and gradually ramping it up, I can avoid these issues and allow the generator time to settle into a smooth operation. So now that we know how the whole system works, let's jump in, build the rectifier, and do some testing. First, I'll make up all the cabling, and I'll start by making the wire lugs out of some copper pipe. I'll get them all drawn out and drilled while the sheet's still intact. Then I'll cut them apart and get them bent into shape. I'll use solar panel wiring cut to the lengths I need. Then I'll strip the ends and add the lugs. Please remember, likes and subscribes really help the channel grow so we can keep the content coming, and the best way to support us is directly over on Patreon. Okay, I've got everything here to start building the rectifier. This is the actual rectifier here, and some heat sinks to keep it cool. I made some bus bars just out of more copper pipe. These are the capacitors that are used to smooth it out, some resistors, and the TVS diodes. So the first thing I'll do is just lay it out on the board just to get the positioning right. And these are just 3D printed holders for the diodes. That's the basic layout there. So now there's a bunch of work to just get it all actually wired up together, and I'll go ahead and do all that. Now I've got everything soldered, I'll wire up the rectifier. Now I'll use some thermal paste and add some heat sinks to the rectifier. Here it is ready to go. We've got the rectifier right here, and the DC coming out is going to be connected to these bus bars. The 2 capacitors here will smooth it, and these resistors will help balance those capacitors. These are just bleed discharges, so when I shut the thing off, the capacitors don't stay charged. These are the TVS diodes that will clamp the voltage at 137 volts. And then this is where I pull off the DC. Okay, so now I'll get this hooked up to the generator and take some initial test readings. I've got it all hooked up now, and I've got an oscilloscope and a multimeter on it, so I'm just gonna spin it up. So here we'll have the incoming AC voltage, this is the outgoing DC voltage, and then the scope will just be checking out 2 of the sine waves. Okay, everything's looking good, so now I've switched the oscilloscope over to reading the DC, and I'll try to read the ripple. First, I'll disconnect the capacitors to read the ripple of the raw DC voltage. Now I'll reconnect the capacitors to read the smoothed out DC voltage. So here we can compare the two voltages. On the left is the raw DC voltage without the capacitor filtration, and on the right is the filtered DC voltage. They both have about the same average voltage, but you can see here that the peak-to-peak voltage differs quite a bit. Peak-to-peak voltage tells us the difference between the highest and lowest measured voltages. The unfiltered DC has a variation of 5.2 volts, while the filtered DC has a variation of only 0.24 volts. If we divide the peak-to-peak voltage by the average voltage, we can find out the ripple amount. So on the left, we divide 5.2 by 31.3 and get a ripple of 16.6%. On the right, we divide 0.24 by 31.2 and we get only a 0.8% ripple. So this shows us that the capacitors have really cleaned up this voltage and reduced almost all of the ripple. Okay, so we're getting really good clean DC voltage now. I was aiming for less than 5% ripple and would have gone ahead with that, but getting under 1% is crazy. So this is working really well, and I'm happy to go to the next step, which is to add the first load. So I've connected a socket to the end of the DC, and I'll be testing it with an electric kettle. And this is a really good load to test because it's just purely resistive. There's nothing in there that can go wrong. So I'll just plug it in, and this will draw as much current as this can supply. I'll throw a clamp meter on it so we can actually see how many amps it's drawing, and I'll also turn on all the voltage readings so that we really see what's happening. And a thing we'll notice once the load is on it is that it'll be a lot harder to turn this. There will be a lot of back EMF that is resisting the turning force, and these drills just aren't meant to provide a constant high torque output. And I expect that at the high speed settings, the drill just won't have enough power to spin this and it'll just stop. And on the low setting, it'll probably have enough power to power the generator for a while, but it'll be going at a pretty low speed, so I won't be able to get this really high. But for an initial test, it'll give us a good idea of what's happening over here. Okay, so it peaked at about 80 watts, which is actually pretty decent for a little drill like this. So the next thing I need to do is up the power source so that we can try to draw even more power off of it. So now I'll be hooking it up to a gas engine, which is going to provide so much more power. But I need to do one other thing to try to make that work smoothly. So if I hook this up just directly to the gas engine, it could cause a couple issues in a system like this. So if the load is already connected, it means the engine's going to be struggling to get started right off the bat because it's going to be fighting against that back EMF. So then I could disconnect the load and just get this up to speed and attach the load. But then when I plug in the load, it's going to hit the system all at once and start drawing a ton of current really quickly. And it's going to be a sudden shock to the system, and it could cause problems with the engine or the connection or in the generator itself. So ideally what I can do is start up the system with no load, get this spinning, and then slowly add the load to the generator. So for this, I'm going to use a buck converter, which is basically a DC device where I can control the voltage. So it'll have a steady voltage in, and then I can start the voltage at 0 and slowly ramp it up and transfer the load onto the system. So here's the buck converter setup, and it's just wired in directly to the rectifier, and then this output voltage will be whatever I set it here, so I can dial it down at the beginning and slowly ramp it up once the generator's up to speed. Okay, so we're all set up for the test. The generator is connected to this gas motor, and right now I've just got it connected with this belt and these pulleys. This would not be a good permanent system, but this is going to allow me to change the pulley ratio and alter the speed of the generator relative to the engine. In a final design, I think I'd have the generator just hooked directly to the engine, but for testing I need to figure out the speeds. I've got a tachometer here in the back, so I'll be able to see how fast the generator's spinning. And then I've got the buck converter hooked up here with all the different multimeters and oscilloscope so that I can take the different voltage readings, still measure the ripple, and I'll be able to control the outgoing voltage here. And we'll just start with the kettle as a load. Okay, it's getting about 90 volts, which is good, so I'm going to add the kettle as the first test load. And now I'll give it a little gas. Okay, so we're getting about 5 amps at 90 volts, so we're at 450 watts. That's looking really good. So I think the kettle test is good, and I'll switch over to the battery and we'll see how much the MPPT will improve the overall power. Okay, it looks like it's charging well, so I'm going to give it some more gas and see how high we can get it. Okay, it's settled in at about 1300 watts, so I'm just going to let it charge for a while now and make sure it can stay stable. Okay, that was amazing. The battery was charging it up to 1500 watts. I designed the system to hit about 1000, so it way surpassed that, which is just crazy, and I'm super excited about this. When it hit 1500 watts, it was pushing the voltage a little bit higher than I wanted it to go to keep this thing safe, so I brought it down to about 1300 watts, and it was able to stay there nice and steady and charge this. I left this plugged in for about 40 minutes, and I got a 25% charge. I went from 27% to 52%, so that added about a kilowatt hour to this battery and it took about 40 minutes of charging to get there. This thing is really stout. It had no trouble taking the charge from a DIY setup, so I have no problem recommending this as a really robust battery pack. So now I might play with the rest of the system to try to get it back up to 1600 watts but be able to keep this safe at the same time. This is still just a prototype, so I would make some changes, and I'll go over those in a future video. But the next video I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this running on a gasifier so that charcoal is powering the whole system and charging this battery. I checked the generator right after I shut it down, and neither the rotors nor the stator was even warm, so that thing handled this amount of power just fine. Everything worked great. I'm super excited. 1500 watts is crazy for a DIY generator, and I'll be back soon, hopefully with this being powered by charcoal. Thanks for watching. I really enjoyed this project. I hope you did too, and see you again soon.